I declare that the 528th Convocation of McMaster University for the conferring of degrees is now in session.
Please be seated. Good afternoon to you all. I am David Wilkinson, Provost and Vice President Academic of the University. This afternoon I have the great pleasure as acting as your Master of Ceremonies and of welcoming you all to this Convocation ceremony. Before we start our formal program, may I first ask everyone in the hall to please switch off any electronic device that may beep or ring during the ceremony. I would now like to call upon our Chancellor, Dr. Suzanne Labarge, to make her own welcoming remarks.
Welcome, honored guests, staff, faculty, families, friends, and most importantly, graduands. This is an exciting day for all of you who are graduating today, as well as for all those people who have supported you and stood behind you, and in many cases have had a key role in your being here today. You have achieved a great deal to get here, and you should all be very proud of your success and looking forward to what the future might bring. Congratulations, and enjoy the ceremony.
I would now like to introduce Dr. Patrick Dean, President and Vice Chancellor, who will be presenting our honorary degree recipient.
Madam Chancellor, by the authority of the Senate of McMaster University, I have the honor to present Stuart McLean. Stuart McLean is a best-selling author, award-winning journalist and humorist, and host of the CBC radio program, The Vinyl Cafe. He earned a BA from Sir George Williams University, later Concordia University, in 1971. From 1984 to 2004, he was a professor of journalism at Ryerson University, where he also served as director of the broadcast division of the School of Journalism. He remains a professor emeritus at Ryerson University today. Mr. McLean rose to national prominence, however, working with CBC Radio, where he started making radio documentaries for Sunday Morning, a show he would executive produce from 1982 to 1984. In 1979, he was part of the Sunday Morning team that won the Best Radio Documentary Actor Award for a program about the Jonestown Massacre. Throughout the 1980s, Mr. McLean was a regular contributor and occasional host on CBC Radio's Morningside with Peter Zosky. His immensely popular humorous on-air storytelling led to the 1989 publication of a collection of radio essays called The Morningside World of Stuart McLean. The book was a Canadian bestseller and a finalist for the 1990 City of Toronto Book Award. With the launch of the Vinyl Cafe in 1994 as a summer replacement show on CBC, Mr. McLean was on his way to becoming an iconic Canadian humorist. Telling the tales of Dave, the fictional owner of the world's smallest record store, Mr. McLean has attracted weekly audiences of more than 1.5 million to CBC Radio and Sirius Satellite Radio, along with a growing audience on national public radio stations in the United States and the BBC in the United Kingdom. The success of the Vinyl Cafe has translated exceptionally well into print. Stories from the Vinyl Cafe from 1995 was a bestseller, and all 10 of Mr. McLean's Vinyl Cafe books have achieved similar status in Canada and, in total, have sold more than 1 million copies. 3 times, with Home from the Vinyl Cafe, Vinyl Cafe Unplugged, and Secrets from the Vinyl Cafe, Mr. McLean has won the Stephen Leacock Memorial Medal for humor. Vinyl Cafe Diaries won the Canadian Authors Association Jubilee Award in 2004. And Mr. McLean is also the author of Welcome Home, Travels in Small Town Canada, and the editor of the collection When We Were Young. The former earned the Canadian Authors Association's award as the best nonfiction book of 1993. Mr. McLean has also taken the Vinyl Cafe on the road, touring Canada and the United States regularly since 1998. In fact, this is far from his first time in Hamilton Place. He was performing here most recently just this past December. An officer of the Order of Canada, Mr. McLean has received numerous honors, including being named the first Rook Fellow for Teaching, Writing and Research at Trent University, and receiving honorary degrees from Nipissing University, the University of Windsor, Trent University, St. Mary's University, and the University of Calgary. He also served proudly as Honorary Colonel of the 8th Air Maintenance Squadron at 8 Wing Trenton from 2005 to 2008. Stuart McLean has become a fixture of the Canadian cultural landscape by telling us stories about ourselves, stories that reveal through humor and familiarity the collective character of our nation. He is one of our most charming and trusted voices, and I ask, Madam Chancellor, that you confer upon him the degree Doctor of Laws, honoris causa.
Turn the other way to it.
Stuart McLean, by the authority of McMaster University Senate, I have the great pleasure to confer upon you the degree Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, in McMaster University, with all the rights and privileges pertaining to that degree. Congratulations. Do you want to get to your notes? That sounds good. No, just I want to call you back. I would now like to invite Dr. McLean to deliver the convocation address.
Thank you very much. If you knew how close to the skin of my teeth I graduated from university myself, you'd... Madam Chancellor, President Dean, Dean Cruikshank, Mayor Brattina, fellow graduates, families, and honored guests. I am a storyteller, so I'm going to begin with a story. Story about something that you may have remembered yourself. You may have heard me speak of it on the radio. You may have read about it in the newspaper. Story that happened just about a year ago right now. A lobsterman working in Antigonish, Nova Scotia, found a blue lobster in one of his traps. And I'm not talking pale blue, I'm talking neon blue. This is a rare thing, though not unheard of. It's caused by a genetic defect. The odds of it happening, about 1 in 2 million. Sheldon Trenham of South River was the lucky lobsterman. And I say lucky because after word got out, Sheldon received a call from the Smithsonian Institute. And he's able to sell his blue lobster for almost $1 million, making it the most valuable lobster ever caught. It couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. That's right. Sheldon Trenham, you see, was a single father. His son, who wanted to go to university and had been working on his family lobster boat instead because they couldn't afford school. $1 million meant that Sheldon's son could afford college, and I thought that was a lovely thing, that working on the lobster boat, the thing that had kept him from school, became the thing that sent him. Nice story, right? Well, it's not true. Oh, there was a blue lobster, and it was caught by Sheldon Trenham, the South River, Nova Scotia, and the odds of catching a lobster like that are 1 in 2 million. But I have no idea if Sheldon is married or has a son or what his circumstances might be. Though knowing he is a lobster man, I think it's safe to assume that he could use a few extra bucks. And I'm sure as he stood there on his lobster boat holding that blue lobster, it occurred to him that someone would have bought it, if not for $1 million, for a serious amount of money. So let me tell you what actually happened. Sheldon took a few pictures, showed a few friends, and then he threw the lobster back in the ocean. Why? Because the lobster was too small to keep. Sheldon followed the rules. And I thought today, on this day of days, it was a good time to take note of that. Because your graduation from is also a graduation to. For when we go, we always go from a thing to another. When we walk away, we always walk towards. So as you walk away from school, from these days of good times and hard times, from these days of fellowship and solitude, from tests and term papers, from coffee cups and all-nighters, from the A's and the B's and the C's and the D's. It's possible that you'll catch the odd blue lobster yourself. If you were a student still, I would forgive you the impulse to take it home so you could study it. But you are no longer a student, you're a graduate. And the degree that will be conferred upon you in a moment not only marks your graduation from this school, it marks your graduation to many things. But the thing I'd like to suggest is that it marks your graduation to citizenship, full citizenship. And as a newly graduated citizen, I would like to ask you to reflect on the duties and responsibilities that come with that. As citizens, we come together through our governments. That's how we talk amongst ourselves. And it has become accepted wisdom these past few years that government represents the worst of us. I want you to consider that the opposite might be true. That rather than our worst selves, we have been our best selves and done our best work when we have come together. There's so many things we have done well together, things of which we can be proud. The way we look after those of us who are ill or too old to look after themselves, or those who might harm themselves or others. The way we move the mail around, the way we serve and protect. All of these things and so many more are a result of us saying, we're all in this together. Now I know, like you, I read the newspapers. I'm privy to the inefficiencies, large and small, all the blunders and the missteps. But is efficiency the yardstick by which we will measure our lives? I'm a writer. I write and I rewrite and I rewrite again. Draft 1, 2, and then draft 3. And then I show my best effort to my editor, and inevitably she asks me to write it over. And that's the best of times. Surely after all of the practice I have had, surely after all of these years, the first draft, the most efficient draft, should be good enough. Never was, and it never will be. And so it is with every important thing I do. In fact, I think my best work is inefficiently done. I don't want to celebrate inefficiency, but I'm an inefficient writer. I'm an inefficient cook. I don't know how many more eggplants I have to buy before I learn the sorry lesson that they're just going to rot in my fridge. I'm an inefficient lover. How many times do I have to write the same letter over and over again? But I do. It's not what I'm saying. I just don't want us to throw out the baby with the bathwater. As citizens, we have to remember how inefficient we all are. how hard it is to get 4 friends to agree on one movie, how difficult it is to organize a family reunion, how complicated it can be to plan a wedding. Imagine what it's like getting 33 million people marching in the same direction. But we have and we do. We stop on the red, we go on the green. And if we disagree with our neighbor, or if our neighbor disagrees with us, we don't hack each other to death anymore. We talk about it in person or in court. We have institutions where we work things out. And we've come to this happy state because people like you, thoughtful people like you, have made the effort to seek the deepening gift of education. And once educated, come to the understanding that coming together is better than staying apart. So here we get to the nub of it. It costs money to do that. So we all agree to throw some money into the kitty. We pay our taxes. And there are scoundrels, sure enough. There are scoundrels and wastrels and self-serving fools who will betray our trust, and whose misbehavior might make us wonder if we should misbehave too. It behooves us to remember the rascals usually get their due. What I want to say to you today is this: it's now your turn to contribute. And the way you will do that is through your taxes and through your votes. You're a citizen now. You have no choice. Your choice is how you will accept the responsibility of citizenship. What I'm asking is just this: do it joyfully. Spread optimism rather than cynicism. Act with the understanding that we are all in this together. That when we act together, we can keep the wolf from the door. Throw your piece of the pie back into the pot, knowing you get much more back in return. It is an honor to be a citizen of this rich land. It's an honor to be able to contribute. Do it happily. Do it gracefully. Do it with gratitude. And most importantly, when that day comes that you pull a blue lobster out of the sea, call your friends over, take a few pictures, and then chuck it back in the water. Play by the rules. When you were a child, you spoke as a child. You understood as a child. You thought as a child. But now you are an adult. It is time to put away childish things. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McLean, for your thoughtful words. Stuart McLean has an incredible talent of being able to develop a message which, you think about it, is very profound and very important to all of us. But he's managed to do it in a way that is clear, understandable, and with a degree of humor that makes it extremely palatable. We are delighted and honored that Dr. McLean has joined the McMaster community today. Thank you.
Dr. Patrick Dean will now come forward to present the graduands to our Chancellor for admission to their degrees.
Will the graduands please stand? Madam Chancellor, on behalf of McMaster University Senate, I present to you these candidates in order that you may confer the appropriate degrees upon them. And I bear witness that they are worthy and suitable. May I also request that you confer the appropriate degrees in absentia upon all those candidates who have successfully completed the required course of study, but who are not present.
Graduands, by my authority and that of the McMaster University Senate, I have the great pleasure to admit those before me today and those in absentia to their individual degrees in McMaster University with all the rights and privileges pertaining to those degrees. My sincere congratulations to all of you. Please be seated.
Graduates, I now ask each of you to join me on stage so that the Chancellor and I may welcome you to the McMaster community of scholars.
Ladies and gentlemen, so that each graduate's name may be heard, it will be appreciated if during the presentation of the graduates you hold your applause, your collective applause, to the end of each degree category. Thank you. Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Doctor of Philosophy. Karen Espiritu. Caroline Wilma Velstra. Fabe Ann Marjorie Wolframe. Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Master of Arts. Heather Martin. Jonathan Dana Royce. Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Master of Communication Management. Phyllis Bennett. Aiden Carter. Tanya Collier McDonald. Maria Sotra. Christine Sostachek. Daniel Zeans.
Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Bachelor of Arts Honors. Virginia Ann Abel. Hannah Irene Abram. Giovanni Aiello. Christopher Carmen Alaimo. Tyson Alexander. Jessica Alfaro. Julia Marie Ali. Corey Allen. James Michael Allen. Tanya Alves. Christina Amawashi. Briar Taylor Anderson. Catherine Zanelin Annie Otibi. Ahlem Akrabawi. Mary Jane Ardren. Arvi Aroman. Andrew Badeau. Armand Bakmazian. Andrew Barfield. Taylor Barker. Lauren Renee Barnes. Lily Beal. Sarah Bell. Jessica Benjak. Justine Elizabeth Bentley. Hannah Teresa Bickle. Erica Black. Stuart Black. Casimir Lucien Boivin. Christopher Nicholas Bonanno. David Paul Bonaventura. Joseph Bookers. Adisa Christina Bozzo. Claire Burke. Heather Berry. Megan Buston. Elena Butler. Melanie Byron. Edward Cabrera. Graham Forrest Caldwell. Daniel Nicholas Carpenter. Grace Carruthers. Kaylee Casano. Morgan Lee Castleman. Bennett Allen Chafee. Lily Bonnie Chow. Miguel Chavez. Glenn Elvin Checkley. Elaine Chang. Audrey Choi. Catherine Choika. Taylor Ann Clifton. Stephen Michael Codispoti. Michaela Elise Colville. Chris Coombe. Annalisa Cornaccioni. Taryn Crankshaw. Caitlin Mary Crowley. Kaylee Cusimano. Lucia Dalimontea. Melissa DeMello. Nuno da Silva. Stephen Davidson. Leander Tabo DeVisser. Carly Daly. Christina Madeline DeFranco. Daniel D. Leonardo. Michael Anthony DiBiase. Sydney Dixon. Daniel DeCroce. Callie Frances Ann Diebold. William Jesse James Dory. Kelly Dougal. Matthew Clyde Drover. Magdalena Dutchnick. Angela Dunbar. Alana Rose Dunnigan. Laura Jane Dury. Marioma L. Mabrook. Julia Empe. Rain End. Catherine Engelhardt. Nina Eshkabadi. Whitney Elizabeth Evans. Kelly Marie Eit. Benjamin Falco. Nicole Margaret Fanara. Alicia Fantin. Anthony Feudo. Kristen Jennifer Felice. Rachel Fish. Nelson Mackenzie Forster. Kate Leanne Fullerton. Catherine Elise Gadowski. Lisa Ann Giles Galbraith. Emily Galamazzi. Elizabeth Garrett. Alicia Giansante. Shannon Helen Gilliland. Emily Judith Susan Gilmore. Kayla Brooke Gingrich. Laura Gladwish. Riley Goddard. Shane Olson Graham. Caitlin Grauer. Julia Virginia Graziani. Kayla Althea Graves. Samantha Joanne Green. Stephanie Bryce Gribben. Irina Grusecki. Annunciatita Marissa Guagliano. Richard Gushy. Martha Hagos. Lindsay Ann Hamilton. Ferial Hamouda. Nathme Thesarini Handapangoda. Ariana Rebecca Handy. Sarah Hanlon. Kayla Rashana Hendricks. Carolyn Hill. Holly Halakar. Valerie Ho. Tori Lee Nicole Holland. Lisa A. Hollingworth. Bryce Hudson. Lisa Janelle Hunt. Marcel Giovanni Iacobucci. Marie Ann Jankowski. Sarah Amer Kassem. Erin Rose Kelly. Brendan Edward Karekis. Sonia Kosla. Christina Kolach. Nicole Cozy. Alexa Kostuk. Philip Michael Krusto. Veronica Krushinska. Monica Magdalene Krisa. Kirk Parker Kuipers. Christy Kwan. Suji Kwan. Vivian Kwong. Greta Dama Ladonyi. Allison Margaret Claire Lemaines. Julie Elizabeth Lane. Mariette Suyan Lee. Jordan Lenjosic. Catherine Levkovich. Amy Liddell. Christopher Lim. Alexandra Elizabeth Aveline Linsman. Cameron Love. Daniel Taylor McCauley. Jessica McDermott. Samantha Malari. Jessica Sarah Marie Marshall. Oksana Maskolka. Emma Masterman. Dima Matar. Thomas McConnell. Kimberly Victoria McDermott. Rebecca McDougall. Sinead Rose McElhinney. Alexandra Sarah McGee. Kayla McGee. Alana Catherine McGregor. Caitlin McHarge. Jennifer McIntyre. Christopher McLeod. Chelsea Erin McMullen. Carrie McMullen. Jacqueline Ann McPherson. Courtney Ann McCritchie. Ashley Medeiros. Lane Marianne Meingast. Emily Rose Elva Mercer. Elise Lauren Milani. Haley Elizabeth Milligan. Alana Mlotek. Kafia Jabril Muhammad. Christina Mohorovich. Nargas Molson. Victoria Elizabeth Molino. Daniel James Monson. Jamie Robert Mudrick. Yosra Musa. Rashanth Nadasapile. Kaylin Diana Nauta. Brigitta Novodarski. Laura Newell. Nancy Nguyen. Jason Michael Nikolak. David Robert Nixon. Carrie Ellen O'Neill. Lindsay Oliveira. Jessica Leslie Alexandria Orchard. Sarah Paisley. Nastasia Palonka. Nicholas Panayotou. Jesse David Mulligan Parker. Matthew Parsons. Adam Mario Perkovic. Allison Piercy. Madeline Pinio. Janine Plantilla. Alicia Potvin. Ryan Michael Prance. Jonna Athena Rose Preston French. Katie Prince. Elena Laura Principato. James Francesco Pontillo. Maria Claudia Chiano. Sarah Quinn. Devin D. Rafferty. Khadija Monique Ramsarup. Catherine Reeder. Elisa Christine Ricciardoni. Joshua Gilbert Rivet. Conchetta Margaret Roche. Dylan Joseph Crane. Bartholomew Nicholas Ronda. Nicole Rostecki. Olivia Rosama. Kada Isabel Rubin. Jason James Rule. Amelia Ann Rutherford. Spencer Kyle Rickman. Sophia Salem. Samantha Sargent. Kali Schmidt. Jody Angela Schooler. Jessica Sita Sears. Tamia Synthil Nathan. Jennifer Shamo. Ying Shan. Marla Sharp. Ross Shepard. Rochelle Simmons. Taisha Sherelle Simmons. Alexandra Margaret Simpson. Molly Victoria Slater. Adriana Elizabeth Sloan. Natalia Lorraine Smarden. Cassandra Lorraine Smiley. Matthew Joseph Smiley. Christy Danielle Smith. Nikita Sridhar. Taylor Stafford. Corey Stackhue. Kaylee Jenica Stanfield Simon. Ashley Brianne Stones. Sonia Stout. Umberin Sultana. Alex Madigan Summers. Alana Grace Civic. Christopher Tananen. Mariella Tancheva. Angelica Tarley. Eric Carmine Michael Tarquinio. Cameron James Taylor. Megale Tavakugatha Salingam. Heather Thompson. Nikki Toe. Goldie Talk. Stephen Travale. Julie Trong. Livia Tsang. Holly Unruh. Sophia Valenti. Brittany Valavicius. Madeline Vandenbrink. Genevieve Claire Vesio. Rochelle Joan Villegas. Michelle Vieira. Shelby Walker. Emily Teresa Walmsley. Jordan Weitz. Nicole Vilk. Tashab L. Wilson. Anna Maria Wisniewski. Natalia Wittek. Jason Wallowitz. Phoebe Wong. Morgan Buchanan Woodhouse. Jesse Wright. Joshua Wayun. Jeffrey Chang. Guan Dou. Heather Stewart Zions. Motepe Samuel.
Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Bachelor of Music Honors. Megan Dorothy Anderson. Ashley Boychek. Matthew Chung. Lindsay DeRoos. Adam Milan Despinek. Mitchell David DeCressy. Jack Joseph Fitzgerald. Stephen Taylor Gobrill. Carly Elizabeth Gowan. Anna Christina Karlyshevsky. Arthur Capron. Olivia Maldonado. Diane Leslie Manojlovich. Graziella Lina Mastronello. Susanna McClary. Jennifer Mekor. Andrea Lynn Miller. Giancarlo Christopher Minconi. Amelia Stefani Neofitu Correa Lima. Jessica Lynn Ristevsky. Samantha Lillian Rutherford. Sarah Naomi Spicer. Melanie Suchecki. Janice Trudy May Wheeler. Cora Wilson. Erin Zawacki.
Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Bachelor of Arts and Science Honors. Benjamin Barrett Forrest. Eric Berry. Matthew Blackshaw. Alexandra Jillian Brown. Haley Bruckner. Joanna Chan. Allison Joyce Chandler. Connie Chung. Tina Cody. Laura Crump. Emily Dyes. Chantal Simone Denise. Heather Verity Dunlap. Rachel Eichelboom. Alia Sarah Isbale. Jonathan Simon Farrell. Mallory Fitzritson. Nicole Elizabeth Gamble. Matthew Kiprop Ehrlich Greenacre. Diana Grescu. Michael David Alfred Hewlett. Shauna Hirji. Melissa Jansen. Zachary Travis Kirk. Palika Krishpa Kohli. Jillian Coymans. David Lang. Kathleen Leonard. Cooper Wonder Long. Manette Malik. Taylor Joanne Drury McCurdy. Catherine Ann Morrison. Nima Nahidi. Casper Nabursky. Tegan Ann O'Brien. Heather Maida O'Halloran. Julia Olioff. Bahar Orang. Carolyn Jane Pekoski. Margaret Peters. Nigel Adam Lucas Pin Coates. Jayan Yu. Kristen Brianne Selena. Hannah Samater. Paul Donald Sewell. Sarah Leah Silverberg. Claire Stewart. Jennifer Nicole Squibb. Bridget Tierney Steele. Jessica Erin Teicher. Emily Trudeau. Yanitsa Vasilyeva. Karen Wang. Jordana Sharona Weingust.
Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Bachelor of Arts. Rima Anani. Elizabeth Ann Bogoslavsky. Jessica Bursma. Jamie Lee Cantlin. Stephen John Cantlin. Ashley Kate. Tammy Chan. Amanda Condello Pagliaroli. Stephanie Annette Craig. Aaron Craig. Samantha Dallow. Ali Dowji. Shelby Davis. Megan Dolbeck. Caitlin Rose Dunk. Lucan Gagne. Melissa Giroux. Taylor Gray. Sarah Louise Hasselman. Joseph Hoffman. Amy Holm. Scott Anthony Hopkin. Jessica Hunt. Kylie Isper. Brittany Jean Jensen. Sarah Alexandra Johnson. Daniel Vlado Jovanovski. Matthew Luke Kuramenen. Brian Minoru Kitamura. Katie Kleefstra. Courtney Marie Lebrec. Shanley D. Lalonde. Daria Darcy Ann Lastivka. Antasia Locke. Constance Grace McKay. Cristina Marino. Terry Lynn McCoppin. Caroline Papel. Michael Perino. Rostislav Podskalny. Paulina Prasmo. Brittany Preokanen. Jessica Ann Robson. Amanda Rockbell Locke. Gary Scullion. Andrew Keith Smith. Alana Spinelli. Stephanie Gabrielle Salzer. Sabrina Daniela Visca. Catherine Wasalation. Dyson Yvonne Edward Wells. Nicole Williams. Kyle Wing. Kai-In Wong.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to introduce Ms. Bahar Orang, a graduate of the Bachelor of Arts in Science Honors Program, who will be delivering the valedictory address.
Chancellor Labarge, President Dean, Provost Wilkinson, Dr. McLean, faculty members, fellow students, family and friends, welcome. There was once a little ant who spent most of its days hurrying along a floor, clutching a little grain of wheat against its small chest. The ant was utterly devoted to its tiny seed and was so fixated on that one grain that it was blind to the endless stacks of wheat all around. The story of this little ant was first told by the Persian poet Rumi, but I first heard it in my last English class at McMaster. Dr. Coleman passed around a brief poem called The Road Home. We read it as a class and then took a moment to consider who this ant was, where the ant was going, and why it scurried along without giving the world a second glance. In the quiet of our classroom, among the loveliest and most inspiring of individuals, I suddenly thought that I could see stacks of wheat for as far as the eye could see. I admit that including on a resume a skill labeled the ability to see all the wheat might not get us too many job interviews. And I suppose we could translate the metaphor to write down things like critical thinking skills or careful decision-making or the ability to do complex research. But I don't believe that any of those things truly captures what we've experienced here together. Metaphors, as I've learned, are made for moments like these. Moments when a straightforward description of reality is simply not enough. Our education has allowed us to understand the use of metaphor and how it can tap so sweetly and so simply into the imagination to create a reality where things that don't seem to relate at first are actually very deeply connected. I have made other connections here, connections to a place that anchors me, that holds me, that pulls and that propels me. I feel as though I've always been floating somewhere in the endless space between different cities, different countries, and different homes. But after my time here, every so often when I look down, I can suddenly locate the coordinates upon which my feet firmly stand. And if I look beyond, I can see an endless map unfolding where each road, each line is made of story. Go north and find Coote's Paradise, where I shared long talks and took breaths so deep that the air still gives me strength. On campus, there is a little common room for arts and science students and profs, where matters that once seemed so disparate fell softly into place, where we learned not to consider things in isolation, but to approach each subject, each thought, by looking at how it relates to other subjects, other thoughts. Go east, and you'll stumble into Westdale, where I learned that books, coffee, and friendly faces are the remedy to nearly every problem, whether it's homework or heartache. And if you glance just a little further east, you'll notice that this entire map is only one tiny, winding vein across the larger beating heart of Hamilton. And perhaps the most important thing I've learned is that the world, in its current formulation, can't exist for much longer. The waste that we produce and the injustice that we tolerate are simply not acceptable. And I insist that our best bet for a possible future can be found right here. Here where I am with people who see clearly, reflect deeply, dream boldly, and can imagine and invoke new and exciting methods of thinking and being. Our education asks that we be individuals who know how to listen from a place of learning, who experience empathy for the struggles of others, and who understand that nothing should be taken for granted. There has even been room to reconsider the structure and the values of this institution, and to remember how important it is to turn a critical eye inwards and make the familiar strange. I hope that as the next step in our journey comes more sharply into focus, and as our maps continue to unravel, we will remember and feel moved by the narratives that have shaped our paths until this moment. And if ever you find yourself feeling lost, it might be helpful to see a little beyond the palms of your hands. I recently looked up from my grain of wheat for just a moment, and things got infinitely better. I am so thankful to have been with you all. Despite the wealth of knowledge that I've been exposed to in my courses, I doubt very much if it exceeds what I've learned from my classmates and my peers. For this, I am most grateful. And today, I wish you all well and sincerely hope that our paths will cross many times more as we each follow the road home. Thank you, congratulations, and good luck.
May I now again call upon our President, Dr. Patrick Dean, who will present 2 President's Awards of Excellence in Student Leadership.
Would Carrie McMullen please come forward? As Carrie McMullen graduates with her BA in Combined Honours History and Cultural Studies, Critical Theory, with a minor in Indigenous Studies, she can look back on an exceptional career of student leadership and community service. After serving on the executive of the McMaster First Nations Student Association, she became the organization's president. In that role, she organized numerous events, delivered public talks, and acted as a mentor for other First Nations students. Specifically, she was instrumental in the delivery of the Welcoming Powwow, the Christmas toy drive for First Nations families, and the workshop called Uniting Voices, a community forum on violence against Indigenous women. Carrie has been an advocate for students and prospective students in the Indigenous Studies program and was a student representative on the President's Advisory Committee on Building an Inclusive Community. She was the first undergraduate student to participate in the Building Multiliteracies project, a project spearheaded by Six Nations Polytechnic that aims to develop a working partnership between community-based scholars associated with the Hoyaga, the Indigenous Knowledge Center at the Polytechnic, and faculty and student researchers at McMaster. A constant presence on the Dean's Honor List, Carrie has also been a research assistant, a tutorial assistant for 2 different courses, and was the recipient of a 2013 Undergraduate Student Research Award and the University Senate Award. Carrie, congratulations. It was great career. Thoroughly deserved honor. Claire Stewart, please come up. As Claire Stewart pursued her Honours Bachelor of Arts and Science and Honours Bachelor of Science degrees, she earned academic honours, including a CEDAR Scholarship, multiple years on the Dean's Honour List, Marauder Scholar standing, and an NSERC, or National Science and Engineering Research Council, scholarship. She was active in clinical and experimental psychology research, including working in the large interactive virtual environment live lab facility here at McMaster. She has co-authored 3 research papers, 1 published, 1 in press, and 1 submitted on issues related to intimate partner abuse and violence and youth aggression, delinquency, and other problem behaviors. An outstanding athlete and member of the Marauders varsity soccer team, then the varsity cross-country and track teams, Claire was an executive member and then co-president of Right to Play McMaster, an organization dedicated to providing children around the world with opportunities to play and learn life skills through games. She participated in both national and global Right to Play summits, the latter in Kigali, Rwanda. She was active in McMaster Athletes Care, through which she volunteered with Boys and Girls Clubs of Hamilton. Off campus, she coached special needs children with the North Mississauga Soccer Club and volunteered with Trillium Health Center. Claire was also a research consultant with Native Youth Advancement with Education Hamilton for the Hamilton-Wentworth District School Board. Congratulations, Claire. Very well done. What a great career. Well done. All the best to you.
May I introduce Ms. Sandra Stevenson, the President of the McMaster Alumni Association. Sandra will now deliver the Alumni Association address.
Chancellor Labarge, President Dean, McMaster faculty, fellow alumni, honored guests, and members of the class of 2014. As newly minted graduates, you probably remember your final exam quite clearly. You might even recall some of the facts and figures you studied the night before. The only thing I remember about my last exam is how I felt walking away. I felt light. The obligations and responsibilities of my student years were done. Then, not too long after that, I realized that I'd also walked away from a network of relationships, locations, and routines that had effectively defined my life. That was when I knew that I wanted to connect with McMaster again, this time not as a student, but as an alumna. I hope that for the majority of you, McMaster will continue to be a part of your lives, and the McMaster Alumni Association is here to help with that. We can help you stay connected with friends and classmates, find opportunities for volunteering or philanthropy, and help you recapture that sense of community that is so much a part of the McMaster student experience. We also put the McMaster family to work in helping you to achieve post-graduation goals. The McMaster Alumni Association created our multifaceted MAC 10 Young Alumni program specifically to meet the needs of alumni like you. We have 4 different programming streams that are truly something for everyone. MAC 10 Professional offers a year-round schedule of events and workshops to support alumni in job search mode and alumni looking to progress in their careers. There's also MAC 10 Social for social events in Hamilton, Burlington, Toronto, and beyond, as well as MAC 10 Intellectual for informative continuing education style events and activities. And finally, MAC 10 Giving, which builds on social awareness that's such an important aspect of the McMaster student experience by providing interesting opportunities for community service and philanthropy. So, somewhere in those 4 streams, you'll find something for you. Accessing our alumni career coach, participating in job finding boot camp, or taking part in our Job Search Essentials e-course. You might participate in events and activities based around social justice, mentorship for entrepreneurs, classical music, days of service, movie nights, grad school prep, pottery classes, cooking events, canoe tours, and yes, even golf lessons. And that's just our Young Alumni program. When you get a chance, visit alumnimcmaster.ca, watch your mailbox for our alumni magazine, the McMaster Times, or connect with the association through social media vehicles. Or actually, you can just read your convocation booklet you received as you exited the stage. If you do, you'll find out what the family of more than 170,000 worldwide MAC alumni can do for you. There is a place for all of you in the McMaster Alumni Association. So, to the class of 2014, we celebrate your success as students and toast the promise of your futures as alumni. Your MAC fellow grads welcome you to the McMaster Alumni family.
I now invite Dr. Dean back to the podium to deliver the President's address.
I'll confess, I found it quite difficult to read the citations for Claire and for Carrie. I'm deeply moved by what all of you have achieved in your time here at university. When one is able to go through the list of what has been achieved by particular individuals, it's very moving indeed. I have to say also, after Bahar's marvelous speech, I'm not sure there's much I would want to say. That very notion that as you leave here, you have learned about metaphor, what it means, what it does, how in some ways it unlocks our understanding of the world around us. That is a hugely valuable insight. But you've heard much from this podium today that I think is great advice and guidance from Dr. McLean. That wonderful statement, we're all in this together, underlining your obligations to work with one another and for the good of the world more broadly. It was, in fact, on that subject that I wanted to say a few words today. And I think, in some ways, what I have to say will bring together Bahar's words about metaphor with Dr. McLean's, we're all in this together. I wanted to talk about the world you're entering when you leave here, because it is not always a world congenial to those who believe in the power of metaphor, who believe in the arts. And I want to say a little bit about our responsibilities as humanists in that context. In April 1967, at more or less the midpoint in the Vietnam War, Martin Luther King Jr. spoke at Riverside Church in New York City, outlining the need for what he called a radical revolution of values. This is what he said: we must rapidly begin the shift from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society, when machines and computers, profit motives and property rights are considered more important than people. The giant triplets of racism, extreme materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered. That was Martin Luther King in '67. Nearly a quarter of a century later, in 1989, with the Vietnam War over, yet countless new conflicts underway in the world and global inequities undiminished, an author many of you will know, Bill McKibben, in his book The End of Nature, drew attention to the ecological impact of our increasing orientation to things and our unprincipled embrace of the machine. This assertion of human power, he was later to identify, paradoxically, as evidence of our dehumanization, of our failure to make the shift towards what King characterized as a person-oriented society. And in his 7th book, from 2003, Enough, McKibben offered advice for staying human in an engineered age. That is the subtitle of the book, Staying Human in an Engineered Age. How are we to understand that phrase? It is certainly not intended to disparage engineers or the work they do, but it is connected to the way in which that work is sometimes viewed, often not by engineers themselves. An engineered age, I take to be McKibben's term for an era intoxicated with technology for its own sake, or one built on the assumption that human progress and technological advance are congruent, if not one and the same thing. I think it also refers to one aspect of our culture with roots deep in the 18th and 19th centuries. The Industrial Revolution, economist Douglas Allen asserted recently, affected a fundamental shift in our human institutions, away from those regulated by social values, such as trust and custom, the things about which Dr. McLean spoke, and towards a regime built around measurement and the removal of randomness in outcomes. Whatever considerable good such a regime brought with it, it brought also danger. As life became more predictable and controlled, the potentially anarchic force of human nature and wider nature played a smaller role. The noisiness of the various inputs, the individual contributions of nature and people was steadily suppressed, these are Allen's words, to facilitate an outcome engineered in the sense that it was planned, controlled, and importantly, measurable. Now, a colleague recently drew my attention to an amusing article in the New York Times. Under the title, The United States of Metrics, author Bruce Feiler explored our contemporary obsession with quantitative measurement. And as an indication that things have probably gone too far, Feiler pointed to an app, presumably available from iTunes, called Spreadsheets, which uses body sensors, accelerometers, and smartphone microphones to monitor almost every quantifiable detail of its owner's sexual activity. Not, apparently, according to the promoters of this thing, for creepy purposes, but so that this information can be rolled up into a comprehensive database documenting sexual practice across the United States. We are awash in numbers, writes Feiler. Data is everywhere, and old-fashioned things, like words, one might say metaphors, like words are in retreat. Numbers are on the rise. Unquantifiable arenas like history, literature, religion, and the arts are receding from public life, replaced by technology, statistics, science, and math. Even the most elemental form of communication, the story, is being pushed aside by the list. How appropriate today that Stuart McLean began his talk with a story, one of those typical stories which reach out and teach us how to relate to one another. Ponder that Spreadsheets app. What is the point of it? Will vast aggregations of data about human sexuality ever capture the story of attraction, love, and lust? And if not, where does the process lead us? What kind of knowledge will spreadsheets provide of sexuality, of the most profoundly human instincts? McKibben asserts quite reasonably that if we are to retain and regain our humanity, the displacement of unruly nature by orderly lists and all they symbolize in technology, commerce, and the full range of contemporary life cannot continue indefinitely. And that is the simple message of his book title, Enough. And it restates remotely in time and within a different complex of anxieties the message of Martin Luther King. At the heart of what McKibben has to say about staying human in an engineered age is our capacity, indeed our obligation, to choose what technologies shall be embraced and what rejected, and to do so in accordance with values that strengthen rather than displace our humanity. And here I know I am speaking to the converted. It is imperative, in short, that humanity ultimately prevail over mere numbers. However, as Bruce Feiler's article brought home to me, it's by no means certain that here in North America, in the second decade of the 21st century, we human beings know well enough what is good for us and what is enriching to our humanity. It took no less a mind than Albert Einstein to say this: not everything that matters can be measured, and not everything that can be measured matters. Apparently, if you look around you, our culture has found this message about as difficult to assimilate as the mathematics of general relativity. Now, there are, however, some signs that may be encouraging. Pondering obsessively and with some puzzlement the disappointing outcomes of their hyper-engineered economies, governments across the developed world are beginning to ask whether the exclusion of randomness, of trust and custom has really been to the good. And not for the first time, the Canadian Council of Chief Executives, which includes CEOs of 150 major Canadian corporations, has seen fit to indicate publicly that it is educated human beings with a broad depth of knowledge and analytical capacity, rather than technically expert list makers who hold the key to leadership and success. And a survey of chief executives released this past January showed that in evaluating prospective new hires today, corporations tend to emphasize soft skills, which perplexingly they insist on calling non-cognitive skills, over hard skills. Just don't understand that. Whether this message has penetrated all the way through the companies led by those chief executives is certainly questionable. But there is some confirmation in the 2013 Campus Recruitment and Benchmark Survey that while hard skills are still not exactly devalued by corporations, the emphasis today is on finding the appropriate mix of hard and soft skills, on rehumanizing the workplace, by readmitting to it the noisiness of subjectivity, intuition, custom. It was recently reported in the Wall Street Journal that at business schools in the United States and Great Britain, this is a quote from the Wall Street Journal, the philosophy department is invading the MBA program. The global financial crisis has sparked efforts to train students to think beyond the bottom line with courses on subjects such as why capitalism and thinking about thinking. These institutions now see a need for their students to read Plato, Marx, and Kant, as one student puts it, to know why we're doing what we're doing. And at a much broader level, a national commission in the United States has issued a report recently proclaiming that those unquantifiable arenas in which many of us in the room work, history, literature, religion, and the arts, which as Philo observed are receding from public life, are essential for a vibrant, competitive, and secure nation. This rehumanizing of institutions, whether they're economic, educational, governmental, may be argued to be a luxury available only to wealthy nations, where technology is today far more than enough for survival. And I suppose there is some force to that point. Certainly, it is in Europe and North America that we're seeing the human dimension reasserted against the technocratic, as if in those cultures it is at last becoming obvious that you can have too much of a good thing. At the London School of Business, for example, students are now offered a course in Nobel thinking, which may not serve to make them Nobel Prize winners, but is intended to help them understand the sources and processes of transformative insight, to help them understand many of the things that are the standard material of discussion in the humanities. Last year saw the appearance of a report to the European Commission on improving the quality of teaching and learning in Europe's higher education institutions, a document remarkable for its powerfully humanistic underpinnings. I find it not without irony that the process of modernization is in this instance understood to mean not increasing subservience to an industrial model, but rather return to metaphor, to what Philo would call words and stories, a rediscovery of the unquantifiable. And interestingly, this coming November in the Netherlands, the global network of research-intensive universities will meet to frame and endorse a statement on the fundamental importance and relevance of the humanities to all areas of study, and by extension, to the project of building and advancing a global civil society that is democratic and dedicated to the greater good of all humanity and of the planet which supports us. As a member of that global network, McMaster University will be represented there, appropriately, as our commitment to humane and enlightened learning and research in all fields goes back over 125 years. Heartened though we should be by every indication that humanistic considerations, those unquantifiable arenas, are now being admitted to the calculus of productivity and innovation, there is a great danger in thinking that so long as students in business, medicine, or engineering are being required to take a humanities course, we have taken up and properly discharged the challenge issued to us by Martin Luther King so long ago. The project which Dr. King opened, and which Bill McKibben's writing reminds us still lies ahead of all of us, you have been reminded about before today. It is the project of reconsidering the values which our society today seems to accept as obvious and unchangeable. And here I'll turn to the critic Judith Butler, who says the task must be to ask this about the value of those values, whether they are comprehensive, what they facilitate, what they foreclose, what kind of world they establish, and what kind of world they destroy. What matters besides what can be measured? And what is the relationship of the quantifiable to the unquantifiable? Those of us who are products of a humanities education are used to pondering such questions, for sure, and no doubt we talk about them a little too readily and at too great a length. But here's an important point. We do not have a monopoly of wisdom on this matter. For that which makes us all human is not only that which can't be quantified. While the ability to work with metaphor, with words, with images and music is an important, perhaps even a defining component of our humanity, it is nevertheless only a component. What we do with numbers, what we build, what in medicine and healthcare we do contra natura, in the teeth of nature, all of this, too, is intrinsic to our humanity. So in order to be human in an engineered age, we have to avoid the false binaries, which are so attractive, particularly to those of us within the humanities. If McKibben is correct, and the love of technology and a technocratic mindset is carrying all of us and our planet toward disaster, it would be a grave mistake to swing to the opposite extreme and to insist that all those things Filer noted have been receding from public life, history, literature, religion, and so on, should in their turn efface completely, displace those things that are presently ascendant: technology, statistics, science, and mathematics. Like every graduate who leaves the university this spring, you are leaving with an education tilted, I hope slightly only, towards one or the other of those extremes. That is as it should be. The world needs highly specialized minds as well as broadly cultivated ones. It needs brilliant engineers as much as it needs gifted painters and writers. It needs astute business minds as much as it needs passionate social workers. And it needs technology as much as it needs a humanistically informed and ongoing critique of technology. But whichever way your background, temperament, educational and career choices have made you lean, my parting advice to you is to remember your humanity, to understand it as something not just there for your use, but as something you have to constantly negotiate. There's a discussion you have to be part of about how we want to organize our world, how we need to partner with and understand each other, and our place in the physical universe. The conduct of that discussion may seem like the exclusive preserve of the philosophy seminar, but it must engage every one of us, and we must in turn engage others in technology, in engineering, in science. Whether we're technology boffins or international development workers, we must all be engaged. Because unless you are part of it, the answers to the big questions in whatever field you choose to pursue your life will forever elude you. So for now, consider the evidence that we do live in a dehumanized age. And as you leave this hall today, remember Bill McKibben's one word given to you to throw up in your defense: enough. And in the pause which follows, no matter in what direction your studies take you after you leave here, ponder what role you would like to play, not only within the technical confines and the discourse of your chosen field, but in the full and glorious project of our shared humanity. We are all in this together. My very best wishes go with you.
Congratulations to the class of 2014. As a McMaster alumna, I'm looking forward to seeing where all of you go from here. And Dr. McLean, again, congratulations on your accomplishments, and again, we are delighted to have you as part of the McMaster community. As Ms. Stevenson eloquently said, you're all now graduates and members of this wonderful group of alumni. What is interesting is the community that we're talking about. You have been members of a community of your family and friends who got you to where you are today. When I listened to the reaction to that you gave to your valedictorian, you've learned the value of the community within which you've operated at McMaster over the last few years. And I encourage you to explore the larger community of the McMaster alumni, where I think you will find there are another group of people who are there to support you and help you as you go forward. We've had 3 superb speakers today. What I find interesting, and perhaps not surprising given this group, is the reference, the stories told to make a message. But I just want to come back, is what I hope you don't do is remember the Blue Lobster or the ant with the seed of wheat, or even the story about the group tracking the sexual habits of Americans. The story was used to make us think of something far more profound. And I think what you got was a sense of, now that you leave here, you have a role as a citizen of the country and a role to play in the broader community to keep us and to remind us that we are human in an engineered world, as Dr. Dean said. But also, these are just sound bites. What they said was far more profound, and what I hope you do is take their words with you and think about them as you leave. I want to wish you all of my best wishes going forward, and wish you all good luck. I have just a couple of housekeeping items to tell you about before we close. A reception will be held for the Humanities graduates and their guests on the Piano Nobile and mezzanine level of Hamilton Place Theatre at 4:30. I think you've missed part of the drinks. The reception for the Arts and Science program graduates and their guests will be at McMaster University, Convocation Hall, in University Hall at 7:30 p.m. Flowers that have been delivered for the graduates will be available at the coat check in the main lobby. I would ask that you please remain standing at your seats until the academic procession and the graduates have left the hall. Finally, please join now in the singing of our national anthem. After the singing of the anthem, this convocation stands adjourned.